So, Antony and Cleopatra, Romeo and Juliet, Calvin and Hobbes, and one of my favorites, Doofenshmirtz and Perry the Platypus. And what do these have to do with today's gospel? Hi, it's Deacon Mike, and welcome to A Cuppa with Mike, where you and I take a break. We take a cup of the hot stuff and reflect on the Sunday's gospel. Now, yes, what do all of these have to do with the gospel? Well, you see, all of them are partnerships. And in today's gospel, we meet a very famous partnership. It's quite a well-known parable, and Jesus directs it to, and let me just quote, to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. And so Jesus tells the story of two characters, a Pharisee and a tax collector, both going to the temple to pray. And they both pray in different ways. Now, a little bit about the Pharisees. The Pharisees were very popular. It was a very large group in Jesus' time. They were well-read. They were considered very informed about the law, and in fact, some of them were regarded as scribes. Jesus had an interesting relationship with the Pharisees. He respected them, and in some cases, congratulated them and acknowledged their wisdom. But in others, he criticized their false piety and the fact that they could be a little bit false in what they believed. They were hypocritical. This comes through in this character in the temple. So this Pharisee, now also the word Pharisee is derived from a word which means separate. They were a separatist movement. They believed in certain things that others didn't. For example, they believed in life after death, along with Jesus. So this Pharisee goes, and he, in the English version, it just says he stood. But in the Greek, it says he stands and turns towards himself. And he says, God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. Now, I'm not sure that someone would actually write like this or speak. But we need to remember Jesus was really good at storytelling, and Luke was a very good writer. And so what we have here is a caricature. It's a message to us that it's something that is relevant to us just as much as it was relevant to that time. So, what about this Pharisee? Being self-reflective, turning in towards himself, there is a sense that he is not praying to the God above, but the God within himself. He's not just righteous, he is self-righteous and self-worshipping. A little bit like the judge that we read in last week's gospel. And Jesus hones in on this and says that's not right. Being self-righteous doesn't make you righteous. And then he contrasts the Pharisee with the tax collector. Now, once again, tax collectors are an important part of society. They used to bid for their role as a tax collector. They would pay the Roman authorities to have this ability to raise taxes for the Roman Empire. And they would bid, much the same as a tender process that we have today. And this enabled them not just to collect taxes and get paid for it, but they often used to charge more than the going tax rate. In fact, some of them became extortionists. Some were very good men. They were active in their society and were highly regarded, but most were unjust and extortionists, and they were not popular at all. But listen to how the tax collector acts and prays. He stands far off. He also separates himself from the community, but he puts his head down. He looks down. He does not lift his eyes up to heaven, but he beats his breast. It's a common action of a Jew asking for mercy. And then he says what becomes a gem in our prayer book. God, be merciful to me, a sinner. Very simple. And then Jesus says, this man went to his house justified other than the other. And so what is the message today, and what does this have to do with partnerships? Well, you see, the Pharisee and the tax collector can be found in all of us. Those of us who are Christian try to live good lives, and we hope that we are made righteous through the name of Jesus. But what we need to be really careful of is becoming self-righteous. In other words, being made righteous by our own actions and who we are. And there's a tendency for us to do this. We go to church every Sunday. We put money in the collection plate. We do good deeds. We're good people. And sometimes we let it slip out to our friends and work colleagues and to society in general that we are good people. But we're not good people for telling others that we are good people. That's private. We should shine out because of our actions. We don't need to shine out because of our words. We also need to recognize that we are part of a very human world. And like the tax collector and the Pharisee, we are sinners. And Jesus says this, and he gives us a tip. He says, "For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but he who humbles himself will be exalted." And so the key is being humble in what we do. Be humble in our worship and recognize that this is a wonderful gift that we're given to be able to relate to, communicate with, and be a child of God the Father. But also we need to be humble in what we do in the world around us, when we interact with others. Self-righteousness is a deep danger. It's quite a challenge. And so this week, maybe it's a good time for us to reflect on how much of us has the Pharisee in him or herself, and how much of us has the tax collector. And then, how much humility do we really have? I hope you have enjoyed the recollection on the gospel. Thank you for all the wonderful messages we're getting in throughout the world. It really is wonderful to have affirmative things saying, "Hey Mike, we really, really look forward to listening to you on a Sunday." So please subscribe and tell others about it. And until we meet again, God bless, and remember, meet for a cuppa next week.